Have you ever wondered what your therapist goes through? Have you ever thought that maybe their life is perfect and that's the reason that they can show up and help so many? If any question has ever been in your mind about how mental health professionals show up for you to support you, stay tuned to have those questions answered and so much more on Am I Crazy? Welcome, welcome, come on in. So glad you are here with me, LaShasta Bell, your mental health expert, and Am I Crazy? When we come back after a short break, we will welcome our guest, Kiaundra Jackson. Y'all, Kiaundra is thebomb.com. She's an award-winning speaker, author, licensed professional, marriage and family counselor. So many things that she has her hands in, and they are all so very amazing. So right after the break, we're gonna welcome Kiaundra. Do you have a story to tell? Wait. We all have a story to tell. If you are ready to tell your story as it relates to your mental health and the journey, the struggle, the management, the awareness, the lack thereof, we want you at Am I Crazy with LaShasta Bell. And what about sponsorship? Oh, thanks for asking. Because there's also the opportunity for sponsorship. Do you have a product? Do you have an event that you want to shout to the world? If so, check out our sponsorship. Same place as the guest forum. See you soon. We offer face-to-face and virtual counseling throughout the state of Texas. www.ichoosemecounseling.com. Hey. Thank you so much for joining us, Kiaundra. I appreciate you coming to the virtual couch to share your story and your expertise. So when we think about story and your mental health journey, what do you want to give the people? I know you have so much, and we may see Kiaundra a few times, y'all, because when I tell you fire, but I'm gonna let y'all see. So where would you want to start?
I want to start in two different places today because I know from my own personal experience how important mental health is, but I also know from a professional experience how important mental health is. And I think as a therapist, we're always helping other people and we're always, doing all of that stuff, but no one really opens up their own book to share their real struggles because we don't want to be judged, right? And so this is why I came on the show today to chat with you, because I want to peel back the layer a little bit about my own story and the things that I personally struggle with, because people see the glitz and the glamour and they see TV and they see books and they see all of the amazing things that I get to do. And that's wonderful, but they don't get to see the behind the scenes of the struggle, of the nights that I'm crying, of the anxiety, of all of the things that I experienced. And so I want to start there. Like, let's be raw, let's be candid and honest.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that, like you said, we struggle as mental health clinicians because we're taught in our program about self-disclosure and not saying too much. But I tell folk, look, I'm human and LaShasta first. And if any part of my story can deliver you in your journey, I'm going to give it to you. Now, what you do with it is your business. So I'm all about it. So let's peel back the layers and get it.
Absolutely. I love that. I think it started for me a while ago. When I say a while ago, I would probably say a few years ago when I first jumped into full-time entrepreneurship. So I was just like everybody else, working a regular 9-to-5, accumulating my hours, trying to get licensed, grinding, hustling, doing all of that. And then I felt like God really desired me to go full-time on my own. And so that was the first time that I experienced anxiety. And I'm not talking about, I'm just a little anxious. I'm talking about full on, had a full-blown panic attack. Okay, like heart beating fast, like
I can't breathe.
sweating, trying to keep calm because you don't want to freak everybody else out around you. I'm talking about full-blown panic attack. And that was the beginning of like, oh, I struggle with anxiety. Like, this isn't something that just came out of the blue for me. This is something that's kind of been underlying my whole life. And then it finally hit me at that particular time.
Oh, yeah, that's good. And I can almost go back a few years too when I realized like, oh, I knew I had ADHD from, it's been about 6 years, but that anxiety piece, when you live with it for so long, it's hard to recognize until you have a whole meltdown. And I was on an airplane and I like to take a quick flight here and there. And I was like, oh no, this cannot happen right now. They gonna kick me off. I can't miss my flight. So you're in the midst of your panic attack with transitioning from a full-time for show money to a full-time I don't know money. And it hits you. You have this panic attack. What do you do then?
And so the funny thing about my panic attack was it happened when I was at my old job, like literally probably like my last week of being there. Mm-hmm. I literally stepped foot in the threshold to go into a meeting, and that's when I had the anxiety attack. And so I went into the meeting, right, because I still had stuff to do, and I was literally trying to keep calm the whole time, but I was freaking out. You hear me? Like freaking out internally. Literally left there and called my therapist like, I don't know what you got to do. I don't care who you got to move around, but I need a session now.
You was one of them. My crisis is bigger than everybody's crisis. Come on.
Move everybody out the way because I need help now, right? And thank God she had like an opening. So I drove over there so quick. This is pre-COVID, of course. I drove over there so quick and got myself together. And she was like, look, you're about to transition into the biggest thing that you have ever done in your whole entire life. It makes sense why you're anxious, but let's talk about this not being the first time you're experiencing anxiety. Right. This is something you dealt with your whole life. You just never knew what it really was.
Oh, I mean, isn't it just amazing how, because like you said, you're working your job, you're getting your hours. So that means your education piece is over. You're doing the practicum internship piece. And isn't it just so amazing how as professionals, we train and learn and know, but then in our personal life, it's like, I don't know.
Listen, that is a whole word, okay? Like, we're able to help everybody else get their whole life together, but when it comes to us applying it for our own individual lives, sometimes it can be a little tricky, and that's real talk right there. So, yeah, that's something we all struggle with.
That's it. That lets us know and remind us that we're human, and I think that. I know our clients appreciate that when we come into that therapeutic setting and we're real, like we're a real person first, but we're also a real person with a skill set and an expertise to help them, get on the path that they need to be with their mental health. So you get real about it and you realize this anxiety has been here for how long? Like, when can you go back and pinpoint and say, were you 3? Were you 6? Was you 9? Where was it?
In all honesty, if I had to go back and pinpoint a moment, I would connect it with the moment that my parents got divorced, and I was around 10 when that happened. So not only were my parents divorced when I was 10, and that was a whole ball game. That was emotional abuse, physical abuse. My dad was on drugs. It was a whole drama, right? You talking about trauma, honey? That's what I experienced. And at that same time, my sister, who was 6 years older than me, actually got pregnant. So there was a whole bunch of stuff happening in my family at one time. And if I had to pinpoint it, it will probably be back at that moment because truthfully, my life was falling apart and I was trying to figure out the pieces to the puzzle and how I was going to move forward in a healthy manner. Even at 10, it was just like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that this doesn't take me out? Because this is something that literally can take people out.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. There was so many different dynamics. And then the one person that you could feel like, okay, is going through this with me, which is your sister. Now she has her own set of concerns and worries that it's like, who do I go to?
Absolutely. My whole life. I'm talking about switched before my eyes. My dad was the primary breadwinner, so that meant the finances in my household also changed. So the stuff that I was used to getting and doing, it was like, my mom was like, we can't do that no more. I'm a single mom with 2 kids and a grandson on the way. And we can't do the stuff that we used to do when your dad was bringing in bread, right? And so that shifted everything. And also I'm also very perfectionistic. I'm very much a Virgo. I'm very much anal retentive, some would say, very perfectionistic. And so that's a part of the anxiety as well. Like, I like things to be perfect. I like things to be timely. And when I don't have control over that, it just blows up. And I'm just like, I just don't know what to do.
Right. It's a whole disaster. Like, it feels like everything falls apart when the one thing doesn't go well, which we both know one of the ways that we work through that is like increasing our flexibility.
Baby, what full-time entrepreneurship will teach you is flexibility. Okay, flexibility with your finances, with everything. Your whole lifestyle is flexible. So from 2017, when I started that journey until now, I mean, I've learned so many tools and so many things, and I've grown so much, and I learned how to manage my anxiety because it still pops up from time to time. And people always like, you don't get nervous, you're not anxious. And I'm like, yo, every time I'm about to go on TV, do a show, go live, anytime I'm doing anything, I get so nervous, but I am able to hold it together really, really well. But that's just real. I'd be like shaking in my boots, like, oh my God, what if I messed up? What if I'm not good? I mean, all of these negative thoughts go through my head. And then I put on this face of like, okay, it's showtime. Let's do it. Right. And that's great and all. But at the end of the day, it's like those negative thoughts are still there that have to be addressed.
Absolutely. And I mean, and we've not known each other, for that long. And we just, we're social media friends. And it's like to see your journey and for you to say from 2017, but to know all of the multiple arenas that you show up in, it's mind blowing. And then that, like you said, and then managing the anxiety, because just the fact of being connected to a show that's on, it's like Oprah on, like on. Oh like, my goodness!
Oh, like Auntie Oprah, Auntie O.
Exactly, Auntie O. And to know that, and that the whole time you're managing anxiety, like, yeah. And that's amazing. Like, I mean, I just need the people to understand.
It takes so much work, and it also takes a bomb therapist, right? Like, my therapist know what's up because I will let her know with the quickness, like, look, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm experiencing, and all of that. So it takes a team, right? It takes like a village of people to hold me up and to support me because my lifestyle and my journey is not typical, right? Like, my journey is not typical at all. And so I need family, friends, a therapist, support system to like make sure that I'm on track, because if I'm not good, I can't show up in all of my greatness and my glory and help other people effectively, right? Like, I wouldn't be able to show up on this show and be great if all of those other pieces behind the scene were not there. And so I got to make sure that I'm on point. That's why we were talking about before we logged on about me working out. Like, I'm making sure I'm taking care of my physical health, all of those things, because they're interconnected. And once you know that they're interconnected in your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul, all of those things work collectively together, baby.
It's one big circle, because many would say, and including I'm in that many, like, you've had a fast track entrepreneurship career. And that with this, even though it's success and it's amazing and you smashing goals, that within itself creates heightened anxiety. And when you talk about village of people, that's speaking on relationships and talking about relationships. And I'm gonna bring it on because I got a whole bookmark in here, so I'm not gonna front and say I finished. Like, look, y'all, she even gave me a bookmark. I'm working my way through it and absorbing it. But you decided to create this tangible that we can hold in our hand, highlight kind of thing for women in relationships. And with March being Women's History Month, and I think with that being one of the biggest things that we as Black women struggle with is being in relationship with each other. I'm like, I'm gonna let her tell her story, but she gonna have to drop some gems for the people, because in the people being me.
Yeah, Hard Work or Harmony is my baby. And that's one of my latest books, my newest books, because I work in the relationship space, right? And I do a lot of stuff with romantic relationships and, you know, the fluffy, feel good type of stuff. But I'm like, hold on. We still got family, we got friends, we got coworkers, we got all of these people that we are in connection with all the time that we can't often just get away from, right? You can't like uncousin somebody or unmother somebody or anything like that, right? And we have these coworkers that if you're working a regular job, you know, that you got to deal with, you know, come good, bad, or in between. And I wanted to shed some light on that because it's probably one of the most difficult relationships, sometimes more than the romantic ones that we have to manage, and family being one of them, right? Like when I was writing that book, because we're talking about transparency, right now, when I was writing that book, every single issue that I wrote about, I went through personally. Like it's crazy how when you start to step out and do the thing that you want to do, those are the areas that try to come for you, right? And so my family, I had some of the worst family issues pop up while writing that book. Friends started tripping on me. I was like, I thought we was good. Like, what happened? What's going on with this? Right. It was crazy, you know, and literally I had to step back and say, okay, God, because I'm a woman of faith. I'm a God girl. Y'all know this. What are you trying to teach me from this? Like, what do I need to learn from all of my own relationships being jacked up right now in order to help the people, right? And so God loves to give me firsthand experiences. He like, you're not about to be out here on nobody's national platform without knowing firsthand what it's about. And so he taught me some things.
Look, and I would like to have you feel like you special with being God's girl, but I'm right there with you. And he issue out the same lessons, child. I'm like, look, I know that this is for me first, and it's to help others. So Lord, let me see through all the chaos to the lesson. But truth be told, sometimes those lessons are even hard for us because once again, yes, we have the professional expertise. And like you said, you are one of the world's, I'm gonna give it to you, world's, yes.
She putting bells on it, y'all. She putting extras on it. It ain't the world. Look, I take it, I receive it.
Look, call me extra today. I'll be extra. Relationship therapist, but you just told us like almost every relationship in my life was taking a hit. And sometimes when it happens simultaneously, we sit back and be like, hold on, is there something wrong with me? So that's why that anxiety started to build up, even though we can clearly see some dysfunction. But when it happens all at one time, we almost question how we're showing up, or I guess we should even question how we're showing up in those relationships.
Absolutely. And I had to learn a valuable lesson. And there was nights that I cried. There was nights where I was like, I ain't writing this book, God. Forget this book. Forget that. I did that on every book I've ever written. I wanted to quit. But God was like, you need to show up for the people. They need this. And so that anxiety that you were talking about was real. I mean, right before my book was about to be released, the person who was helping me edit and do my cover and get it all together just went MIA. Haven't talked to her still to this date. Right? I mean, invoices paid in full and everything. I'm like, what is going on in my life? And so I had to push through though, right? Because I set a deadline, I set a date, people were waiting, and I had to get it together. And so that was just what was happening behind the scenes. All of everything was falling apart. And that's how I knew it was going to be impactful. And the first 2 days of that book being out, I got so many DMs and emails. Oh my God, Kiaundra, thank you so much for writing this. I'm already at the end and I just got it, today. And I mean, those are the messages that warm my heart and make me want to keep going, even in the midst of all the foolishness that can happen.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's been good to me already. And I'm like, okay, I'm busy, but I'm not too busy to focus in on learning and understand how to better be in relationship outside of my husband, because 2020, that was that thing. Like, let's either get it together or let's leave each other. You know, it wasn't no in betweens. It wasn't no middle ground. We're going to either figure it out together or we'll figure it out individually. I'm going to always love you like Whitney Houston, but we don't have to love each other in this relationship. So I'm like, okay, look.
That's real though. That's real.
That's 110%. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, but the here's the funny thing, and I say funny because it was one of those, we know it happens, but when it happens to us, it's like, oh, that's real. When I focused in on the relationship with myself and understanding that, even though the course was to figure out the marriage, so many other relationships in my life improved. The relationship with my sister, the relationship with my mom, and I'm like, man, this was the lesson, Lord. It wasn't just about the marriage. It was about all relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that that's so powerful. And one of the things that I learned the most during my journey with writing that book too, is like, I had to set very strong and strict boundaries with people who thought that they could cross your girl, right? Because she's still from Compton. Let's remember that. She's still from Compton. I had to set boundaries with people, and then I also had to learn how to cut people off, but in a healthy manner. So I had to end relationships in a healthy way. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book. Like, no one teaches us how to do that. We in that cutoff culture, like, deuces, I'm gonna block you. I ain't gotta never talk to you again, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I can easily do that, but I'm gonna have a conversation with you and let you know why this relationship is no longer benefiting me. And whatever you choose to do, if you choose to be happy, mad, sad about it, that's up to you. But I need to release you in a healthy way so I can move forward with my own intentions in my life. And so setting boundaries and ending relationships in a healthy manner was like my lesson of 2020. And that's what I wanted to give other people too, because as millennials, we quick with the cutoff culture, but we have to think about this stuff differently because they're also human too. And if nobody takes the time to tell them, hey, you did X, Y, and Z to me. This is why I don't want to be friends with you no more, or I don't want to work with you no more, or do business with you anymore. They're going to keep repeating that cycle. They're going to keep repeating that pattern because they don't know that it's wrong, right? And so I'm in the business of 2021 and beyond of helping people get their life together so they can move forward.
Now, see, I'm strong on them boundaries. I even got a shirt that says my no game is strong, and Jesus had boundaries too. But that second one, though, come on, that second piece. And I think, you know, for many, we're starting to understand boundaries, especially with a pandemic and things of that nature that has forced some boundaries. People are better understanding that. But that healthy cutoff, and I don't want you to divulge it all because they need to get the book. But get the book. But if you had to drop one little gem about that healthy cutoff, having that conversation, what would be any one part? It could be the first step or the last step, because I know it's a multi-step process because you got to have a whole conversation with yourself first, I'm sure. What would be one of the steps in that process of the healthy cutoff? Like, I just love the healthy. I like that. I'm a hashtag healthy cutoff.
This is the new hashtag, by the way. Hashtag healthy cutoff. Listen, I think for me, I had to figure out if this was a dead end relationship or if it was just in a difficult season. Don't miss it. Was it a dead-end relationship or is it just in a difficult season? Because you'll have relationships with people and it's full-blown dead end. It ain't going nowhere. They talk about the same drama. There's no growth. It's just like, sis, bro, we doing the same stuff we've been doing for the last decade. Like, what is the point of this relationship? And then there's other relationships that are just in a bad season, a difficult season. We've all gone through loss, financial issues, death, COVID. I mean, those are issues that put strains on relationships, right? And it could be a little rocky for some people, but the relationship overall is good, right? If you look at it in the context of history and past behavior, you can see like, okay, this relationship has elements that I want to keep and hold on to, right? It's just a phase. And so That's the most important thing, figuring out if this whole relationship is trash and it needs to go bye-bye, or if it's just a difficult season. And so having that conversation with yourself first is important, but also verbalizing it to the other person, right? And that's the hard part, because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. They may think the relationship is great and you might not feel the same way. There's a whole bunch of things to think about from the other side. But that's where empathy comes in. And that's why we're having the conversation instead of cutting them off in the first place. So that would be kind of like the main gist, without giving too much of the book. Well, you need to figure out which season this relationship is in, and if you want to deal with it in the first place.
Okay. Ooh, that was great. That's enough to preach and pass the collection plate, so y'all need to know that's just one little tidbit that's in the book that, like Kiaundra said, it was a whole experience for her. So when you read it, understanding that yes, she's a mental health professional and she has expertise, but what trumps that even more so is the personal experience and really digging in to some stuff, like digging up some of those old roots that no longer serve you, so that you have space to plant some new things. I mean, that's good stuff.
That's real talk. And I mean, not to spoil it for anybody, but I talk about all relationships, and I even at the end say, you know what, we can't talk about all these relationships and not talk about the relationship with self, right? Because it ain't always everybody else's problem or fault, right? Sometimes it's you, boo. It's you. That's you. And you got to put that mirror up, right? And look at yourself and say, okay, it wasn't that person. It wasn't my mama. It wasn't my cousin. It wasn't anybody else. It was me. And you have to take responsibility. And so sometimes we have to have a good relationship with ourselves first before we can have healthy relationships outside of us, romantic or non-romantic.
Look, you said it, because me and female to female relationships have been a struggle internally. On the outside, people like, oh, yeah. And I have several different friendship circles, but part of that was a protective measure within itself, because then nobody can get too deep, too far.
Yes.
And then the people that I did grant access to too deep, too far, before I knew it, I looked up and it was a sense of codependency in the relationship. It's like when you delete a text thread and it take up about 2 gigabytes in your phone, and it ain't your husband. Look, you talking about being transparent with the people. I'm like, oh sis, yeah. Like that mirror went up, and I had to really, really work through it and realize that the example wasn't there. And so what I was doing was I thought was the example. And it just didn't work.
That's real good. And that's something I struggle with as well. Like my prayer, I think it was 2019, top of the year prayer was like, God, please surround me with women and men and people who just want to see me win, right? Like they don't want nothing from me, because I get a lot of fans. I get a lot of clout chasers, or people who just want to attach to me because of the dope stuff that I do. Oh my God, can you introduce me to Oprah? I'm like, look, I ain't Oprah. Yeah, okay. So how am I going to introduce you to somebody I haven't even met yet? And so my prayer was literally, please, God, surround me with people who just want to see me win. Who doesn't want anything from me, who has their own journey. And it's just sisterhood. It's just brotherhood. And I think slowly but surely, God has been answering that prayer and sending me people like you. And even though it's virtual, like those conversations are meaningful to me, and it allows us to build on something beyond the Facebook Messenger platform.
Right. Yeah. So, I love it. No hate on the Messenger, because we be in there like, oh, child, did you?
Girl, see that?
Right. It's exactly. And so I am so grateful that you took, time out to speak with our audience, to tell your story, to just show up and drop gems, because that's what it's all about. And it's different when it's a mental health professional, because, they see us in a different light. And the hopes is that now you will be the start of many to come of mental health professionals on the show, so that we really dig deep to normalize mental health, especially in the Black and Brown community. So I truly, truly appreciate it. And if you had one thing that you wanted to leave for the people, I know you already, I prompted for that gym on the on the relationships, but just in general about mental health, anxiety, whatever it is that you want to leave with the people, what would that one thing be?
I think I want to leave them with what we started with, and that being transparency. No matter what you're dealing with, mental health, related to mental health, depression, anxiety, personality disorder, parenting issue, death, loss, whatever you are experiencing, it's okay to state it out loud, because there are going to be a group of people who are probably going to look at you like, "Oh, girl, I can't believe you're going through that." But there's also going to be another group of people who are going to surround you with encouragement, with support, with love, with good vibes, good energy. And that's going to provide you with healing, right? And so we all go through stuff. Remember, you are not alone. And as a mental health professional, as America's #1 relationship therapist, I have my own struggles. So if I'm having them on this level, I can't even imagine what other people are experiencing on their own in the silent nights in their bedroom when there's no one around. And so it's okay to get that support. And so transparency is key. That's how I operate. Like, y'all know, I'm just truthful and honest and straight to the point. And I think that's the most powerful thing. That's what gives you power, when you can tell your story unapologetically.
Yes, 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 yes. So thank you again. I so appreciate you, and catch you in the DMs.
Catch you in the D. You can slide in my DM anytime, boo.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.